Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show. With your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. Welcome yet again to another fantastic cast of the pod.
Yes, yes. And thanks to our listeners, man. We are cranking some serious numbers.
Loving the listeners.
You guys have just, it's unbelievable.
I love everyone with ears.
Yes. And thank you,
as long as they're tuned in.
And thank you all. And thank you for the listeners that have been clicking the donate button or the PayPal button and donating money to the show.
Right.
Can't thank you enough there. The Amazon is kicking.
Awesome.
You can go right through our banner, right through our website. Amps and Axes
to the Amazon
Cast.
banner.
Yes.
Right.
AmpsandAxesCast.com. And all the stuff is there. The social media, the Facebook, the RSS feed, the Stitcher. If you have an Android and you want to show, you can go to Stitcher. You can get the show there. Quality not so good there. They actually compress it a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, and it's nothing I can do about it. I apologize.
None
of that stuff.
None of that stuff.
Just a little bit more like an AM radio instead of like.
I love AM radio.
The quality of what you hear here. So.
I was born and raised. Yes, born and raised. I was going to say bred and then raised, and then they got combined. So
yes,
I was braised on AM radio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it. And I have an Android, so I'm going to have to check it out for myself.
Yeah, and make sure that if you do subscribe through iTunes, that you give us a nice 5-star rating or just give us a review, and it doesn't have to be anything real long, and that way it'll rise. It'll rise up to the top there, and the more this goes, we have plans. So there's
the more you give us 5 stars, the more we turn into cream.
Yes, and as that happens, and you guys spread this word, then we got some other things that we're going to be able to share with you.
There's lots of big picture in the horizon.
Yeah, it's
going to be cool.
We want to build a little network.
Absolutely.
And this is going really well, and we can't do it without, of course, you guys.
Every last one of you. So thank you very, 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 very much.
Yeah, and the comments. Comments have been flowing in at Facebook through Gmail. I mean, that is what we want to hear. We want to hear these comments. And what was it? Chad. Yeah, Chad was the one who brought up the Rhino amp thing.
Did Chad bring it up?
Chad brought it up when we mentioned it on the show.
Oh, right. That's right.
Chad was the guy, and he thanked us for mentioning his name. And I was like, well, look, man, you send it out there. We're going to...
Yeah, and we got a response from Frank Dominic, which sent me a link to a little bit of history. I think it was in the Blue Book or something of Rhino amps. And they got a whole paragraph in there, and obviously they weren't around for too long. It says amplifiers previously produced in El Paso, Texas, between 2000 and 2005. So they were only around for 4 or 5 years. A gentleman named Robert Turner founded Rhino in 2000, and he was president of the company. Another gentleman, Michael Spitzer, started working with Rhino as a technical advisor in 2002, and this same guy, Spitzer, was Yngwie's manager from between 2000 and 2002. So he went from being Yngwie's manager
to this guy.
To a technical advisor at Rhino.
And then they made an Yngwie Malmsteen model.
Right. Yeah. And I supposedly, according to this, that's what led the design of that signature amp led to the Black Star YJM 50.
Yes.
So
Black Star was was the name of one of his albums. I think it was his first album. No, it was a song, I think, on his first album.
So this Black Star
Is not the Black Star.
not the Black Star Amps.
No.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, Black Star was a name, I think, of a song. I guarantee you, somebody that's an Yngwie Malmsteen fan hearing this right now will be able to tell us exactly that. I'm almost positive. I had the first Yngwie Malmsteen album. I think there was a song on there called Black Star, or the name of the album was Black Star. I could look it up.
Okay.
But I think that's why they probably called it that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'll do that while you
interesting.
read more there.
Well, I'm not going to read all of it because, there's a little bit of it that's derogatory, and I really don't like to bring up negative things.
Oh, okay.
I try to stay
positive.
So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that's interesting about the Black. So I'm assuming that the Rhino Yngwie model was called the Black Star YJM 50. I would have to assume, since it wasn't a Black Star amp, it would be the model. And it is a song. Okay.
The album was called Trial by Fire. That was, it looks like live in Leningrad. So that was a live performance, but it was on his first album called Rising Force.
Okay.
There was a song called Black Star. That's where it probably came from.
That's really interesting because because
he
had the name and then
and then the amp
and then
company
he's always played Marshalls more or less except for the little brief stint with Rhino, and a bunch of expats from Marshall left and started Black Star Amps. So it's it's like it's almost incestuous.
Yes, it's kind of amazing coincidence.
Coincidence?
Maybe not.
I think not.
And, it's funny because, you associate Yngwie Malmsteen, you always see him with a Strat, just a standard Strat of what would be either 21 or 22 frets, mostly 22, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And there's a picture out there somewhere that I saw years ago where he was playing some prototype that actually had 24 frets.
A Strat?
It was a Strat with a big headstock and everything. Fender had made it for him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's... Yeah, and he's big on the big headstocks, 70s-ish kind of
real
Strats,
real Hendrix fan.
Yeah,
and that's Hendrix played mostly the big headstocks, the 3-bolt micro tilt, and always had
they were 3-bolt then. Were they then 3-bolt in Hendrix era? I don't think so. I think the micro tilt came later.
Yeah, you're right.
I think
that was
came later.
Like
mid to late 70s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
They changed the headstock, but they didn't come up with that wonderful micro tilt thing until later.
Leo Fender actually made, I think some of the GNL stuff came with 3 bolts, and he perfected it to where it wouldn't do all that shifting and all the other stuff that the originals did.
Right.
Meanwhile, I mean, you could put, a deck of cards between the neck and the body on some of those guitars. So, there was a lot of bad stuff. But now, neck joints now, there's no excuse now.
Right.
With all the CNC machinery going on, there's just
it's no longer most
excuse.
of the time it's no longer a hand operation.
It's unless they're doing, it the old-fashioned way, using wood templates with an overhead pin router. That's why they would get eggy and get big.
Right.
Because the template would wear out. It would just ride against that pin all day, and it would just, So,
that would have been a wood template way
yes,
back in the day.
Now,
a lot of guys use aluminum templates.
Now they can use, if they're using overhead pin routers. Yeah. Now, if it's CNC, it's just let the machine go.
Right.
And it will cut it exactly the same way every time. Mm-hmm. Not always better.
Right. But consistent.
Yeah.
That's right. So, so thank you for the input on the Rhino amps.
Yeah, man. And you know what? That right there, that tells us we got the best listeners in the world.
Absolutely. All over the world.
Because that response came within just, I think it was like a day or two of the show
of the
actually
going live.
Yeah. So thank you very much for that, Frank.
Yeah. And we get questions, too.
Yeah, we do.
We do get questions.
And sometimes I wonder.
Here's... This one, I'm bringing this one up because it struck us both as interesting.
Yes.
Okay. First part of the question, and this is kind of legitimate.
Do we want to give the guy's name?
Trevor in Gary, Indiana.
Okay, Trevor.
So here, first part of your question. Why do bass amps have wattage like 1,000 watts and guitar amps mostly go to 120 watts? Okay, and
I know this, but
it's just the mere science behind acoustics and the physics behind it and everything. It takes a lot more power to move lower frequencies than it does higher frequencies.
Absolutely.
That's why the like in a stereo system where you would have a woofer and a mid-range and a tweeter and the crossover network split them up in a passive speaker. A lot more of the power that's put into that speaker is required by the woofer in order to make the same amount of perceived sound to your ear than the mid-range would and the treble would.
Absolutely.
It's a your ear listens on like a weighted curve, and it just takes a lot more power to move as much air as your ear responds to at lower frequencies than it does at higher frequencies.
Yeah, and if you actually look at the wave, if you could see the wave, the physical wave, the lower one is very long. It's it's very gradual and very long. So you got to take a lot more to push that, where the higher ones are very short. Yeah. And they
now the lower ones travel further.
Yes, they do, because they hit. You feel them. That's why you feel them.
Well, you feel them, but they also actually do physically travel further. That's why lower frequencies, even in like broadcast, like AM and stuff that's even lower than AM in the frequency range, they will travel much further distances. And they'll even travel like more on the surface of things, whereas as higher things, and I know it sounds opposite from experience, but the higher things kind of get absorbed and attenuated more easily than the lower things. Although if you're like in a room and you're listening to reflections off a wall, you're going to hear highs much more than you're going to hear lows, and that's a whole kind of different thing. But
because I guess it's getting absorbed into the solid structure and not bouncing back at you so much, right?
But the highs bounce back.
Yeah,
but they
don't penetrate as well.
They don't travel as long.
Yeah,
a low travels longer.
Yes,
and it so I don't know if that explains it, but it takes a lot more power to get the same amount of perceived volume in your ear from low frequencies as it does from high. So that's the first part of the
And I'm the proof,
there.
and I can just give you this scenario. My old bass player had a 1600 watt bridged SVT 4 Pro Ampeg, and I had a dual rectifier, which is 100 watts. My dual rectifier with 412s was right there beside that 812 1600 watt amp.
Right.
Running right beside it. Like you could hear me actually a little bit better than you could hear him.
And on top of just the physics of it, bass players most of them like to be very clean when they're loud, and it takes a lot more power
to go clean.
At
high volume.
Absolutely. At any volume, but at that volume, it takes a lot of power to play clean.
Yes.
So hopefully that answers part of it. Another part of your question is, why do people buy 212 amps and only mic one speaker? It's a twofold answer. A 212 amp, it sounds a little bigger. It feels a little better to play if you can play a 212 amp. It moves more air on stage.
Yeah.
It's just a bigger sound, basically, than a 112 most of the time. Unless the 212 is a basic cabinet and the 112 is some kind of engineered, ported kind of feel.
Yeah.
So that's why it just, if you're able to play a bigger combo, it just feels better, it sounds better, it fills the room better. Why do people only mic one speaker? Because unless you have two different speakers, which is the case in a lot of boutique things.
Your stuff.
My stuff. Even back in the day, Matchless, they would do 212s, and they were different 12s.
Like a Jensen and like a Selection, right?
It wasn't, it should have been that different, but it wasn't. It was just like two different kinds of European sounding speakers, and there's not a whole lot of difference between them. There's a much bigger difference between a British sounding speaker and an American sounding speaker.
Yeah.
Than there is.
Like two different magnets, right? Like Alnico and ceramic.
Well, but they would still use both ceramics.
I understand.
Yeah, but and
Yeah.
there is a big difference between those kind of speakers too.
Yeah.
But the only reason you would mic two speakers, there's two reasons you would mic two speakers.
Stereo.
One is only if your rig is stereo.
Exactly.
But if they are different speakers,
yes,
you can mic both and then have your sound man blend between the two to match the room that you're playing in better. Or if you're in a very, very professional type of atmosphere of, touring, or especially things like television, things like that, redundancy is a big part of what has to happen in situations like that.
Now, would you get any phase cancellation? Could that happen?
You could, if the mics were placed differently on the speakers, and you would notice that if you tried to give the same EQ and the same volume level to both mics.
Okay.
You absolutely can wind up with some phase cancellation.
Yeah.
And that's, you'd find that more in a studio than a live situation.
Yeah.
Although, systems in live situations now are so good that, it may show up,
Exactly.
as phase cancellation. And, good front of house guys would know that. But, for live things in a professional venue or for television, things like that, you have to have redundancy. So if one speaker decides to crap out, you've got a mic on the other one, and you can finish the gig, and then take care of the repair later. So
gotcha.
But generally, in a just a live club situation or semi-professional, you mic one because the same information's coming out of the other one.
I used to have a stereo rig, and I used to make a mic in one 412, right?
Yeah.
So the tubes top and bottom were separated.
Right, and if you're using stereo effects, choruses, delays, things like that.
And the sound man used to bitch at me so much.
Absolutely.
Because it'd be like, what do you need two microphones for? I'm like, it's stereo. And they're like, so what? And I'm like, have you ever heard half of that when it's true stereo?
They're going, so what? My system's mono.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, but it sounds like crap. I mean, you're getting half of the way. It sounds a little weird.
Yeah, and in a situation like that, you would mic both and then just blend them together to get the fullness, because it does.
And then I realized that was dumb, so I just went with mono. After that.
Yeah. It's, and you can lose it in a mono system anyway.
Exactly.
Okay, so we got one more part of this question here too.
Yeah.
And this one, I take a little offense to this. I really do take offense to this.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny anyway. Why do bass amps look cooler than guitar amps?
I don't even know what the hell where is he coming from?
I don't know that a lot of guitar amps don't look cool. I mean, I think mine look kind of cool.
Now, I mean, are you talking about Rush? Because they had basically, Hughes and Kettner made Alex Lifeson washing machines with rotisserie chickens in them.
Yeah.
And, that was the amps, per se.
So,
I don't know
even that's cooler than a bass amp. Look, the guys that are into Ashdowns, like the meters on them,
What the hell is cooler than a stack?
I don't know. Why is a bass stack cooler than a guitar stack?
I don't get that.
I don't know.
That's a strange question.
I need proof because I don't believe.
Yeah, I'd like to see some pictures.
Right. I want. Yeah, and don't give me a picture of a bass amp with lipstick on it, because that doesn't count. All right, I want the raw bass amp, not made up. Okay.
And if you listen to our buddy Glenn Fricker, he doesn't have a big love for bass players, so. But yeah, it was cool up to that point, and then I was like, what the hell? So yeah, I don't know. That's why I kept that part of it to last, because it's something I can answer, and Look,
I think my amps are pretty damn cool.
Yes,
so
they
prove
are.
me wrong. Prove me wrong. Go ahead.
And let me tell you, that formula has been written, and that's why you see what you see, because aesthetically, for the most part, 90% of the companies out there, it looks good. And it's functional.
it's functional, and in the broad sense of the term, it's familiar.
Exactly.
You know, so
you start getting a little goofy, and guess what happens? You end up like Rhino.
All that tells me is if the bass amps are goofier than guitar amps, then what does that say for their audience? I'm going to leave it there. But anyway, we're gonna with our guest today, we're gonna take the show in a little bit of a different direction than norm.
Okay.
We are going to interview someone who is, pretty much a whiz in the studio. He's got a lot of credits under his belt. Some things I really I'm curious about, asking him and like how is doing this type of producing different than this type of producing, and you'll figure out what it is. But he's got a lot of credits under his belt, and I think he probably uses all manner of recording, both real and faux. But we'll talk to him about a whole bunch of stuff, and and how he got there, where he came from. So
Okay.
we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to have, he's not only got cool credits, he's actually Grammy-nominated. So,
well, there you go.
There you go. So we're going to bring back, as soon as we come back, Mr. Rich Tozzoli.
Hey, this is Samantha Fish, and you're listening to Amps and Axes with Jeff and Mick, and they leave the heels to me.
All right, and we're back, and with us, as promised, is producer, composer extraordinaire, Mr. Rich Tozzoli. Rich, how are you?
Excellent today, guys. Excellent. The world is good.
That's good to hear. Thanks for taking the time. Obviously a busy, accomplished gentleman, so we thank you for taking the time with us.
Amps and Axes, man. Come on, rock it.
That's what we do every week, man. We try to rock it.
Beautiful thing.
So, I heard a little guitar in the background. So, obviously, you play at least a 6-stringed instrument, which means you're a little bit familiar with guitars and amps, and you're familiar with a whole lot more things. But before we get into that, I always like to, take a trip with Sherman in the Wayback Machine and find out where Rich Tozzoli came from and how he got where he is. So, take us back a little bit, man. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from? And how'd you get involved in music?
I grew up in northern New Jersey, and I got involved in music in the early days, playing, believe it or not, flute and then saxophone, and then Kiss Alive 2 came out.
Awesome.
It was never the same since Kiss Alive 2. And from there, I immediately took up guitar and have played ever since 7th grade, which is a long time ago.
Wow.
And this is weird, but I went to college for marketing and management, and I was a banker. I didn't even take music in college. And then after college, when I was in banking, I said, this sucks horribly. And so I decided at that point to make a career change, and slowly got into audio recording and producing and engineering and playing, and I just went down the path from there, to be honest with you.
Wow. So you said you took up guitar. Do you remember your early gear? Like, what was your first guitar, and what?
It was a Les Paul copy, Cherry Sunburst Les Paul copy. The first one was a Yamaha acoustic, which I still have to this day, which is really neat. Nice. I was a Cherry Sunburst Les Paul copy. I can't remember the brand name. A bad little amp. And the funny thing is that I guess I was about 14. My guitar teacher still plays around here in a reggae band, and I still sit in with him, which is wonderful.
Wow. What's his name?
Al Bazaz. It's a band called No Discipline. They've been a reggae band in New Jersey for like 30 plus years. And what else is really neat is that the guys that I jammed with in high school, I still jam with.
That
really?
is too cool.
Isn't that great?
Whereabouts in North Jersey?
I live in a town called Rivervale now, but Westwood is where I grew up. And the boys, I was playing the other night, a bunch of them came out, and we still get together sometimes and just jam for with nothing and no reason or rhyme.
That's awesome.
Actually, what's really neat, I have a little tidbit of cool information. I was just down in St. John in the Virgin Islands recording and playing some shows.
Mm-hmm.
And every year we go down at the same time. And in a small, small world, St. John is a very small island. My high school bass player's band is on the island at the same time.
I love that. I love when that happens.
So we jam, we hang. And, actually, the weird thing is that's the only time I see him all year is thousands of miles from home.
That's almost typical, you know, because you wind up running into people all over the place. It's like, what are you doing here? You know, I mean,
I'm in Disneyland. How in the hell did I meet you here?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in North Jersey myself, so
I didn't know that. Where?
Yeah, Linden.
Oh man!
Yeah,
welcome home in some weird Skype play.
Right. That's right. I'm Skyping to North Jersey.
There
Wow, this is great.
Now I want to ask Rich, the album Kiss Alive 2.
Right.
Did you stare at that cover for like the inside for like hours, right? Because they had all the risers up. Right, Simmons is on the left, Stanley and Frehley are on the right, and of course Peter's in the middle, and it's they're full up. And if you look real close, Simmons' right sleeve is on fire.
Oh, that's a good tidbit. And I'll tell you what, this is cool. I'm in Guitar Center 2 weeks ago, and they have a bunch of vinyl. And it's Kiss Alive 2. I walk out. I think I sit in the car and I say, I have to go back and get that. I went back into the store, bought the vinyl of Kiss Alive 2, and went to the session that day with my boys and opened up the centerfold and went, check it out, boys. And we've had it up in the studio ever since.
Yeah, you know the bat wings that he had? Okay.
So cool.
So inside there, they got, when they do that, they had all the sparks going.
Yeah.
For this photo shoot. Obviously, it's probably not even a live show. They probably set the thing up, and they just wanted it for this shot, right?
Sure.
So if you look, though, the sparks are flying, and you can see that they must be flying right by his arm. The one bat wing is on fire.
All right,
in that photo.
Check that out.
And I was like, that is the coolest thing ever. And I used to stare at that for, that album was 3 sides live, and the 4th side was actually new songs, right?
Yeah, which Ace didn't play on all of them.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, that's when it all started to.
Yeah, exactly.
You kiss heads. You kiss heads.
This is what it was, man.
It's, 2 records ago, I did Ace's record. I engineered with him.
Oh, nice.
And it was really cool to work with my, it's working with Ace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just me and him sitting there, and I bought my second guitar was a Les Paul Standard Tobacco Sunburst, and I bought it to the session, and Ace used it on the record, and I bought that because of Ace.
Nice.
That was a neat little turnaround in my career. It's like, oh, this is cool.
And a very underrated player, Ace Frehley. There's a lot of licks that a lot of people use that don't realize they came from him.
Absolutely. I was thinking that if you think about how your style develops, my style developed. It's interesting because I never really learned Kiss songs note for note, but my bending style is definitely related to hearing the bending style of Ace and the pentatonic kind of bending style.
Yeah.
And then you got the Jimmy Page bends and the Jeff Beck and.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he was not a speed demon.
No, but boy, he can play. And I'll tell you, when you're sitting with Ace and you're sitting right next to him, and his hands are strong as bulls, and you hear him rip the strings. That's part of how he gets that sound.
Yeah.
He rips the guitar. And it's just fun to sit there and just be there and say, oh, I hear it. I hear the sound. I hear it. I get it.
Yeah, well, you think about it, right? When 75, when Kiss Alive, and then all that, there was a couple precursor studio albums.
Yeah.
They were just Marshalls with that Les Paul straight in and cranked. And, you could tell he's just manhandling that thing, man.
Pounding,
yeah.
Yeah, we had Bruce on the show too.
Bruce Kulick,
cool.
yeah.
We had Kulick on, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, we got off on a Kiss tangent.
So let's get back to a Rich tangent.
Yes,
here.
I'm sorry.
So obviously, you know, high school bands and things like that, right? And then,
Oh yeah, you know, we had a band called FUS. I'm allowed to curse on here, right?
Absolutely.
F yeah.
The guy who I mentioned from the islands who I ran into, our band was called FUS, which stood for fucked up shit. We would just make up. What was really neat in high school, we would just make up songs. We didn't play other people's songs. And what was really cool is we would play odd time signatures, you know, just weird stuff. We would just make time signatures up and play together. And this is like 10th, 11th grade.
Huh.
And I still use all that stuff. My timing, blessedly, is really, really good. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we just played odd time signatures as kids.
You know, that's really got to influence you, you know,
Sure.
differently than people that, you know, are used to, that start out playing like 4/4 kind
Definitely.
of stuff. You know, it's
Yeah.
wow.
Like, how about this lick? Ready? That's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. See, I used to play that all the way back then. So we would play like 5, we'd play in 7, and just make things up and completely improvise. And it certainly influenced what I do to this day.
Yeah, but Rich, can you dance to it? Did you have an audience? Were there chicks in the audience?
There was 4 men with long hair and denim jackets.
That said Rush on the back.
Mine
Right.
said Outlaws, believe it or not.
Outlaws.
Outlaws.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
That's hilarious.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. But yeah, that's,
Then we got into funk. You know, I love funk too. So the good thing about playing with the guys that I play with too is that we would play every style. Even, you know, we'd play old jazz tunes, but just maul them. We'd destroy them. We like what they're supposed to sound like.
that's the way I like them. Just somebody take it and put it in a blender, man. You know.
Really.
Yeah.
And it helped me in my later years. Now I really just do TV music. That's pretty much almost all I do. And I have to do every day is a different style. So I have to be like, all right, I'm going to play country today. I'm going to play jazz. I'm going to play rock. I'm going to play hard rock. You know, acoustic, slide, baritone, whatever.
Wow, it's such a versatile guy. You know.
Man.
It's crazy. So when did you? Let's get into the recording thing. You know, obviously, you know, played a bunch, had a bunch of fun. Then what made you decide to like just go into the recording end of things? Was it recording your band and it decided this is cool and I could?
Oh, you know, I'm not sure what it was. I think I just always liked technology, and I was the first guy in all around here. I was the first guy with Pro Tools.
Ah.
Oh, wow.
And I learned it cost $16,000 to $17,000 for 16 channels back then. It was $1,000 a channel when I first bought Pro Tools.
What did it run on?
It did run on a PC. Now that I think about it, you're right. That ran on a PC and then a Mac. I had some of the early Macs. It's a great question.
Was that a 386? It had to be, right? Because it was Windows.
Hey, wow, you're bringing. Let me pull the cobwebs out of my head.
I'm just curious because it probably took forever to like load and.
It was not that bad.
No?
It was cool. I started with everybody started with a Tascam Porta Studio, et cetera, and old Alesis microverbs and just being fascinated with reverb. And then I got into Pro Tools really early, and I actually read the manual. Imagine that. I seriously read the Pro Tools manual.
Well, back then it would have came with a manual because now it's like you got to go to school.
Yeah.
You know, they got classes.
It was a big monster. And what happened from there is I became kind of a go-to guy. Blessedly, I went out on the road with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I started working with Al Di Viola and like all these people. And it's really because I knew Pro Tools, and I was one of the early guys with Pro Tools.
Yeah. No, I can remember watching Sound City, you know, the Dave Grohl documentary thing, and they were mentioning the early on days of Pro Tools and how they would go to change something, and this is supposed to be, great because you didn't have to like physically take a razor blade and tape to
cut and paste
on the physical tape.
Yep.
And you go to Pro Tools and change something, and then I believe they said you had to do what was called render it.
Yeah, and it took forever.
And it just it took forever and ever. And then if you didn't like it, you had to undo it, go back and do it again, and then let it render. And it would like take hours for the processor to go through this process.
That's the way AutoCAD was when it first came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And, AutoCAD's supposed to make your life a lot easier. But if you do a drawing that has like 30 layers and you had one of those old PCs, you would just let it render and go home. And then next day you come in, it'd be done. Nice. It would literally run for like 8 hours.
And you would hate it, so you'd have to undo it.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Right.
Wow. But now it's ridiculous now. I mean, now there's no latency. I mean, you had to probably use, you were definitely using outboard gear and all that stuff. And then you were probably going to DAT. Was that even invented then?
Yeah, I was going to DAT, and then I had the early CD,
Wow. You were like, it's $16,000.
Yeah, I went through the whole chain. The interesting thing is, right before Pro Tools is when I really started engineering, and my first freaking gig was Al Di Meola. Imagine that.
Wow.
And I learned to punch Al in with ADATs. So it would be like, here's the lick. All right, Rich, I'm going to come in here. And you gotta nail it. Here, that's the sound of me punching in.
Sure.
You have to punch in and punch out, and if you miss it, you lose it. You got to cut the whole lick again.
Oh, man.
So I learned the really hard way right from the top. The earliest sessions I did were the hardest, which was good.
Baptism by fire, man.
Yeah.
Baptism by fire all the way. Yep.
Wow. No pressure. No pressure.
I mean, now
it's honestly, just Di Meola. No pressure.
Now, honestly, like I've said, most of these dolls, they are all the same. It's just the interface looks different. Where you go to copy a loop or however you do it. But it is ridiculous how easy it is now. I mean, especially if you're running a Mac, it finds all the devices and you just start adding tracks and your plugins.
Someday you'll teach me.
That didn't even exist back then. They had no plugins.
Yeah, I had the first plugins. I have a really vivid memory. I think I wrote about it recently.
Wow.
Of Emerson, Lake and Palmer standing behind me in a circle, all three of them, and I'm showing them the Focusrite EQ plugin. They had never seen Pro Tools before.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's a pretty cool memory if I jog that one out.
That's awesome. Hopefully there are, available pictures.
Yes.
Luckily, no one had phones or, I like the fact that we didn't have that stuff back then, that nothing's on Facebook and nothing, our memories are our memories.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, when you were doing Di Meola, did you have your own studio at that time, or were you engineering at somebody else's place?
Pretty much, I was in the early days of home studios, and he built a home studio, and I was helping there, and then we would go to conventional studios. I went out to L.A. with him, with Stanley Clark and John Ponte, and helped him with, I can't remember the name of that record. It would be stuff like that.
Interesting.
And it was early. He still has a good home studio. People have really, when I was in the early days of recording, part of the reason I got into it was because of home studios work. I really didn't like to go to big rooms. I felt the hourly pressure was not for me or not my style, and I always wanted to do things my way, and I did, blessedly. So. Wow. I got a lot of people into home studio recording. Tomorrow, it's funny because tomorrow I'm working with Omar Hakim. You know who that is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so tomorrow I don't really engineer that much anymore, but I like working with Omar because we have a lot of fun. And the reason I like working with him, he was in the early days of home studio recording. So Omar is crazy smart in the studio.
Yeah, I mean, he's from the the early Di Meola days too. All the early fusion stuff.
Yeah,
is where a lot of these guys came from, and it was just so awesome. I love that era.
Such a nice guy. He's such a solid guy, and we have such a great time recording and having fun and experimenting with mics. And he really knows his shit in the studio in a big way. So it's a pleasure to work with people like that. But the point I was getting at is that the home studio people now really can do so much work at home. Mm-hmm. And then what we do is, for the most part, if I have bigger sessions, I will go to like a clubhouse in Rhinebeck or something, go to a big live room to get the big drum sounds. But my friends have good drum rooms now too. So home studio recording is, I've seen it come from its infancy into where it is now.
Yeah, that's
so cool.
Yeah, you could do at home now what like the best studios back in the day weren't even capable of, And now it's,
God, yeah.
It's just like Rich was saying, you go to a big room to get drums and things like that,
but, with the right building in your own house, you can do it now too,
Definitely. Just, you got to add one thing, a musician. Good one.
There's that.
That's a cool thing, man, to see it from its infancy like that, because I didn't know that there was that many home studios, that far back. Because that was a big undertaking. Those boards were not cheap back then. They're not cheap now, but they were real expensive, and most of them were custom fit, right? They were built on site.
Yep, a lot of them. I'm gonna go. I go all the way back to what was called, and you're jogging me a lot of good memories today, guys. Mixing in the box means keeping it completely inside a computer or completely inside of Pro Tools. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And back in the early days of Pro Tools, everybody poo-pooed it because it was digital recording. It didn't sound that great. It was 16-bit converters. It was just, it was what it was.
A little sterile.
But it was easy to use, and I saw it all the way back then that mixing in the box was the way to go. So I rarely ever used a board, and I only had one board in my whole life.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool.
I mean, there are I'm sure plenty of guys that have to be like, no, I want the physicals under my fingers,
Yeah. Oh, I get it too. Yeah. When I have good faders, like what I was saying, when I go to the clubhouse, he has the old vintage Neve, and you can't beat that. You just can't beat that. But if you learn how to mix in the box, you really, especially with the universal audio plugins now, like there's so many pieces of gear that have been modeled in a great, great, great way. They just sound fantastic, that you can get some amazing sounds. And so I've been an MITB, mix in the box guy, for a long, long time.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Well, I mean, it's obviously more than adequate for the professional amount of work that Rich does nowadays. Because, you're doing themes and soundtracks and things like that for a plethora of shows and movies, and it's just I guess the end product is no different. It's all in how the engineer and or producer works most comfortably. So I guess if you're
exactly right.
If you were brought up working inside the box, then it's absolutely no different for you, and no less quality in any way, shape, or form than anybody else who works outside the box.
No, in fact, I personally think it's not better quality, but for me it's better quality because of the speed that I can work. I cut so many TV tracks. Like a lot of the shows that I do are the crazy car shows, a lot of those Counting Cars and American Restoration and all those, weird shows.
I mean, you do like
I watch them all.
Pawn Stars and Duck Dynasty and all
Duck Dynasty, Pawn Stars, Counting Cars, all those, Alaska Bush People, and like it's fun because every show is a completely different kind of sound. Counting Cars I have the most fun with, to be honest with you, because I get to rip.
Yeah, I've watched that show. That's what's his name? It's
Coker, I think his name is.
Yeah, he's a big time. He drives around like Vegas, and if he sees a car, he'll go offer the guy money.
Yeah,
they made a show about it.
Wow.
Yeah, and he flips the car. He'll buy it, fix it up, flip it, and that was called Counting Cars.
Yeah, what I love about it, he's also in a rock band.
Yeah.
He loves guitars. He loves all that shit, and the work they do is he's so into doing the right thing and making the thing sound good, and it reminds me of like you guys and me, like caring about our amplifiers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you got to have that real deal. For Counting Cars, I'm often using the real deal amps, which not a lot of people do and recording with a drummer.
And see that's where I was going to go next. You said it gives me a chance to rip. So obviously you're a hell of a player. Do you play? Well, I guess maybe except for the drummer, do you play everything on the tracks that you record? Wow.
Yep. We use no click. We go into the studio. We write the part. Luckily, I can write riffs really fast and just create stuff. And then I have a really good the various drummers that I work with. Both have good studios, and one of them named Vincent Morelia has vintage amp repairs. We have a ton of great amps.
Wow.
And so I use a lot of really good amps, and we just write on the spot. I write the cut, and then I run it by them. We rehearse it, and we play it live. Maybe it takes 15 minutes. And then
wow.
I'll double the guitar all the time. And then I'll sometimes put a lead on, but often TV, they don't like leads. So I just leave it out. And then I cut the bass part, and the track is done. But it's fun because I get to use, my Mesa Boogie Mark IV you hear on TV all the time. And I was mentioning that I use a Gibson Falcon, 1966 Gibson Falcon. I hear that. What's cool when you hear stuff on TV, I can hear that amp.
Huh.
That is so cool.
Oh, it's such a unique. The Gibsons have such unique reverb, as you guys know.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably like most of them out there, where you can turn the volume off and turn the reverb up, and it's nothing but verb.
What a unique sound that is! I use that for creepy parts.
Yeah, it's nothing but verb. There's no dry at all. It's just all wet.
That's
it's
cool.
So cool.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you can only do that with some Gibsons. That's
exactly.
Cool. That's very cool.
I got a couple. I'm really into Gibson amps. I have an old BR6. You know that little guy looks like a transistor radio?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the BR6. I think it's from the 30s. And isn't that called a field coil speaker?
The high voltage runs through the speaker.
It's not a standard looking speaker. It's two parts. It's separated.
Right. It's got 4 wires running to it.
Yeah.
And it's a that was before permanent magnets. And they used to run the high voltage through it
to create the magnetic
through a coil
field?
to create a DC magnet.
Ah, see?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. I'm asking you.
Oh, that's good.
Tell me a little bit about this here, because that amp, I'll tell you, it's the size of a radio, but I can get Joe Perry out of that thing big time.
That is so cool. Yeah, that's don't be touching any of the terminals back there while the amp is on. I can tell you that much.
I haven't touched anything.
Usually when they do that, there really aren't any terminals involved in the coil, because it is, it's running
a live wire,
350 volts plus, and it's just insulated wire, and then it goes to the insulated coil, and then it comes back out an insulated wire. I don't really think they actually, if I can remember correctly, there's no terminals to where a solder joint would be made, so you couldn't accidentally fry yourself.
Right.
At least on the high voltage side. On the speaker side, there are terminals, but yeah, they that was before they invented permanent magnet speakers, and they went from field coil to permanent magnet, which is like the early Jensen types, the P10s, the P12s. The P was for permanent magnet, because that was the original magnet. They were Alnico magnets.
Yes.
And then after that, they developed ceramic.
Yeah.
And those are the C10s, the C12s. That's the other type of permanent magnet.
I got a wrinkle in my brain.
First one was Alnico, and that was aluminum, nickel, and cobalt.
Is it? Yeah. Now, what are the sonic differences?
That in essence has more to do with the cone material and things like that, the dust cover, but it also seems that the permanent magnet speakers, the P series, I think, and you can have a 25 watt P series and a 25 watt C series. A lot of guys prefer the P series, especially guys that are into really raspy blues or harp players. They prefer the P because they dirty up more quickly on the low end, which I was never a big fan of, but they certainly do have their place.
I see.
So I mean, sonically, and I don't know the physics behind it, although the magnets are generally considerably smaller in a P series than a C series.
Yes.
But I just find that the bottom end dirties up and falls apart a lot sooner than a ceramic. So if you're looking for a lot of dirt from a speaker, an Alnico. If you're looking for a tighter bottom end, the ceramic.
Yeah.
And Alnico's gotten pretty expensive nowadays. You can the difference between a P speaker and a C speaker is very, very considerable.
Wow.
So
look at that.
See that?
I learn something every week.
Fun facts.
Me too. But it's usually from our guests, not from me. So, but yeah, fun facts. But see, we're both jogging some cobwebs today. So
yeah, man,
that's good.
That's nothing wrong with that.
Oh hell no. So if I'm going back to the conversation we were having, I think my next question to you was, how did you get involved in the soundtrack industry?
Really, it's TV music. I really don't do soundtracks in the traditional sense of films, though I've worked on such things. I first got started way back for Nickelodeon, just making weird sounds, doing songs and it goes back to the days of my friends writing songs with each other in high school. We never played other people's songs. Well, very rarely. We wrote our own songs. And so it was completely natural for me to just make things up. And I got a tape. A friend of mine got a tape to someone at Nickelodeon who heard it and said, this kid has something. These guys have something. And we did some Nickelodeon tracks. And from there, it was just a slow build up because it's not really where I was headed. I was engineering and mixing and still playing. And then I just sort of got more into it, and then it's to the point now where it's really more than a full-time job. I mean, I can't even keep up with the amount of shows, which is great.
Wow.
So it's fun. I get different assignments each week. This week was alternative garage rock today, and then literally the past few days have been swamp blues, which is why I had the Magnetone out and the Gibson.
That's great, man. So do you get video or anything to
sometimes
kind of almost, I guess, quote unquote, score with?
Picture is what that is. Yes, I have done a lot of that kind of work. This is more right cues. They're called cues. They have to sting out, which is down. That's a sting out because if you watch TV and you listen to TV, you'll see the editors cut to that stuff. In fact, next time you watch Counting Cars, listen to how the editors cut the tracks. You have to have a sting out, and I'm good at it. I write really fast, and blessedly, I know how to get good guitar sounds. And I'll tell you, 90% of the stuff I do for television is guitar oriented.
Very cool.
That is really cool. I have a good friend of ours that does video editing she was working for Discovery for years and years, and she's freelance. And Joy. And she's really good with matching sounds and soundtracks to video, and there's a whole art to that.
That is a big time art form.
Yeah.
Now I got to ask, Rich, when you do those movie tracks, with the way that everybody is so paranoid of that thing getting out, do they even send that out to you, or do you have to go to them and do it in their studio?
No, they send stuff out, but like I was saying, I really don't do movies in the traditional sense of Sony film.
Oh, okay.
I do the TV shows, and it moves much, much faster. The 2 shows I'm working on this week, I don't even know the name of the shows, and I don't even care. That's how fast I move. I know what's needed. I cut the tracks, I upload them on the FTP, and I move on. And then the only time I know if I hear it is if it comes back on my statement, or a lot of times I'm watching shows pretty much every night, and I hear my tracks. So that's fun.
That's too cool.
So you basically just get a direction as to what type of sound they want, or what type of music they want, and what the specific needs. Well, you probably, if you're doing the whole show, you probably know what the specific needs are at this point. I need this kind of intro, I need this kind of tag out, or whatever you call it, and just generate them all and send them all in. That is awesome.
When you guys watch, or even the listeners out there, when you watch television, listen to television. Every show is branded with music.
Oh yeah,
it's a particular kind of music. You're not going to have jazz cuts on Counting Cars.
Right.
You're going to have rockers. For Pawn Stars, you're going to have goofy scenes. You know, you're going to have that when Chumley's doing something stupid.
I love it.
And you know what's weird is the theme songs have pretty much gone from TV shows.
Right.
You know, like back in the day of Three's Company or any of that stuff back then.
Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah. You know, it was a song. It was an actual song written. But like he's saying, inside the show, there's a ton.
Oh, yeah.
Of just these little, like, you know, 3-second clips.
All the shows would be so boring without music.
Oh, my God.
You know, they would just drag along.
Especially the reality shows.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, a lot of the shows that use my music, I won't even watch them. They're horrible, but I don't care. It's fun. You know, you're just cutting tracks, and I'm doing what I love. And if you do what you love and you're making music, who cares? You know, have fun doing it. And,
you know, he's done stuff for, like, Fox NFL and NHL.
That stuff's fun, too.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would say that I bought that Mesa Boogie Mark IV head new in '92, and I've used it ever since. It's been on hundreds and hundreds of TV tracks.
Wow.
I mean, the Mesa Boogie Mark IV is such a great head. It's just so nasty.
And that's what you want on TV, more nastiness.
It's true.
That's right.
I get to really get nasty guitar sounds, and I love it. And I love when editors let me know that they like the guitar sounds, so that's good. That's what I'm talking about.
Cool. I want more of that.
Rich, were you on that? Did you do the guitar parts for that Ted Danson show where he was a doctor?
No, that is a network television. I only do some network television. I'm much more cable television. Network television is really closed. Network TV shows pretty much have one guy pretty much composing the show. Whereas cable television shows have a multiple array of guys that just hand tracks in, and the editors basically sit there and pull from a library.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you know that show I'm talking about? It was called Becker.
Yeah, Becker.
That guitar player, it was all blues. It was,
I remember that.
It was all Strat, and it was just being pushed through an amplifier.
Oh, see, that's cool.
That cat was hot.
I
man.
do remember that because I remember the first time I saw one of those episodes. I'm going, this is a really cool guitar.
Yeah, who is this guy?
Player, yeah, he's
like that.
And he would do those cutouts, the cut-ins. Mm-hmm. He would do all that. You know, we have to find out who that guy is.
A lot of that stuff is LA because you have to be, for that kind of stuff, you pretty much have to be on site or on scene.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I'm here in a little condo in New Jersey, I'm looking outside at the woods right now, looking at deer. And
nice.
I can work, wherever I have a laptop, I can work.
Yeah,
that's sweet, man.
Well, see, that's the benefit of learning early on to work inside the box too.
Yeah,
you can pick up a laptop and work anywhere.
Yeah,
anywhere. And when I was down in the islands, we were playing some shows, but I was recording. We had multiple studios set up in a house.
Wow,
cool. Well, and with the way network television is today, you're not going to get much business. Most of it is on cable now.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. There's only a limited amount of guys that do that kind of thing.
Yeah, cable's kicking ass.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, FX and places like that. My God, their shows are number one.
Netflix,
AMC.
Yeah,
absolutely. And like that crazy Duck Dynasty show, they rate higher than national television shows, or they used to. I don't think they do anymore, but when they were hot, they did.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's amazing now because the selection is so wide.
Yeah.
That now if you get 500,000 listeners, you're number one.
Right.
And you would think, oh my God, when MASH had 20 million people watching, but
final episode,
but you had 3 channels.
Exactly.
And that was it.
Right.
So your Wednesday night was either watching one of 3.
You're forgetting UHF.
Yeah, but they were running reruns of Captain Chesapeake and stuff like that, just bizarro shows.
That's right.
So now it's just more challenging.
Right. But I want to move on just a little bit. I know this is going a little bit long. I want to move on just a little bit from recording like all the cable content.
Yes.
To you're pretty big in surround sound as well.
Yes, I don't do a lot. Again, I focus you learn as you go along in your career to focus on on not only what's fun, but what's paying you really well, as you guys can imagine. And I sort of transitioned out of that just because I spent so much time on television music. But I was way deep into surround for a long time because I was so into the fact that you could immerse yourself in 3D of sound. So that I got to work with, again, when you learn something and you become good at it in the early stages of it, you get hired for cool gigs. So that's when I did the David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust show, and
Hall and
Oates, and all those fun stuff. Billy Squier,
Blue Oyster
Cult, all that fun stuff. I got to work with a lot of the people I grew up listening to. I've been able to work with, which is kind of fun. And you learn in surround sound. It's complex because it's 5.1. It's center, left, surround, right surround, and sub LFE channel. So it's hard. It's actually complicated to do surround work. You have to have a particular setup. But it came naturally to me because I was so good at Pro Tools that it was just an extension of Pro Tools.
Wow. You see, he learned so well that he actually is the author of Pro Tools surround sound mixing. So he took a little learning and then just wrote a book about it. Christ.
Yeah. Well, it's good to say, do you know how to do surround sound? And I can say I wrote the book, and they laugh. That's like,
no, really.
No, seriously, here's my book.
Should I autograph it for you?
That is too so cool, man.
But what's for us anyway, what's even cooler, I mean, I can't discount that because that shit's just freaking amazing to me. But what's even cooler, he co-authored the Ultimate Guitar Tone Handbook.
Oh yeah, I like that one. Bobby Osinski, man, what a great guy.
Wow.
Yeah, right. So he obviously knows how to get some tone, even if it is out of a Mesa.
Yeah, there we go.
Come on.
No, man. Hey, that Mesa makes you money every day. I cannot knock it.
My Mesa rocks. It's funny when I bought that to Ace. You'll love this. And I bought that to Ace to see if he liked it. He's like, "There's too many knobs and buttons on this thing." Calls everything Poppy. There's too many knobs and buttons on this thing, Poppy. He didn't even use it. It's like, all right, that's fine. It really is. It's a crazy head. But I only use one channel and 3 knobs. So if I could strip the rest of it out, I would.
There you go.
Actually, I'm really into Universal Audio just modeled. Do you know the Friedman amps?
Sure.
Yeah, they just modeled the DS40, the Dirty Shirley 40, and the 100. Wow. Damn. Whoa.
Interesting.
Yeah, like seriously ripping. I've been using it for the past few weeks. That's pretty much all I'm using when I go in the box.
Mm-hmm.
I run through a Tube DI, a guy out of Nashville, Brett Teagarden. I run through that and then into the Dirty Shirley. Wow. Oh, boy.
Now, is this a plug-in within, obviously, within Pro Tools?
Yeah, it's the Universal Audio, so it's sitting inside of Pro Tools.
Is it something that they write, or is it from an exterior company?
Friedman wrote it with Universal Audio, I think with Brainworks, which is a company that does really good amps. I've been around since the early days of amp simulators too, or amp plugins, and some of them were just horrendous, and some of them still are. But just recently, I noticed, especially when you use a tube input stage, that you can get the sponge, you can get the finger feel. And this Friedman is one of the first ones where I said, wow, I'm really digging this. And the Friedman Dirty Shirley, that's like a 45 watt Marshall. Is that correct? You guys, JMT, what's that 45 watt Marshall?
Yeah, the JTM 45.
JTM 45, yeah. Ooh, boy, I want one of them now.
Well,
yeah, I've known Dave for years. I knew Dave back when we started Buddha, actually.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
What makes that thing sing like it does? Did you rip guts out of those and mod, or what's the deal?
I'm not sure what Dave is doing nowadays. I would have to assume that he's pretty substantially based in Marshall-esque design and just mods thereof. I mean, he's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
So, they're pretty heavily Marshall-based, I would assume. And, I've had a couple across the bench, and they were, like very hot-rodded Marshall kind of things.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are those 84 EL84s in there? Tube-wise?
In the in anything that's like 40, 45 watts or so, that would be 34s.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
34s.
Yeah. Oh, they get spongy and delicious. And,
Yeah, that and probably a tube rectifier,
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
Well, it goes to show you, though, that the plugins now have just surpassed everything. I mean, it is crazy because Rich, you would have a better idea. I mean, it's got to be hundreds of companies now that are out there producing different types of plugins. I use Guitar Rig just to lay down tracks.
Yeah.
And Guitar Rig has done an incredible job at reproducing some of their stuff.
Yep.
But with Amp Farm and God, I mean, there's tons of these companies now,
for sure.
And it's amazing that you're able to get so close that you can use it on actual recordings. I mean, because that's what you're doing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
it's wild.
When I'm listening back on TV, I know my sounds, but you guys or the general listener would never know if I had a real amp or a modeled amp. There's no way you would know.
Yeah.
Right. Now speaking of that, have you had I know I keep going here. Have you had the opportunity to play the fractals and the Kempers, and what do you think?
I have not had the opportunity to play them, but those who have speak very highly of them. I'm very interested in them. I think it's just a matter of I get really good sounds with what I have, so I'm content here for now. But I would definitely use those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they would get the sponge factor, but you know what I mean by the sponge factor.
Absolutely, yeah.
You guys all know.
I think that's the biggest complaint that I've heard from most people. It's
the feel.
It sounds cool, but it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
It's the digging into the string. It's the getting the amp to respond to your touch, to get dirty or not.
Right.
That's the thing that plugins don't have. But this Friedman 40 with the tube, now that I started using a nice tube DI, you can spongify it a little bit.
That may be the secret, man. That may be to get your sponge before it goes all into the processing.
Can't recommend that enough.
And the other thing is too is that to kind of close that gap a little bit is the fractals and the Kempers and even the 11 rack and all. Basically, the software is the software. So whether it's running on a PC and you're using that tube preamp, to come in, you're basically doing the fractal thing. It's just a piece of hardware.
Right.
So what you're doing is essentially offloading any processor, work that the PC would have to do through the plugin.
Right. It's in the hardware.
It's in the hardware.
The external hardware.
Yeah. So it's outboard gear instead of inside the box. It would make it a little bit harder for him to travel. Because he's got to carry this piece that's the size of a rack.
Right.
Rack piece 2U or whatever it is. So that would he's probably getting dead on, if not better than what that unit can do.
It's just crazy. It's technology.
The Last Testament record I heard used those, and I was like blown away that they used those.
Wow,
those are some really, really good guitar sounds.
Oh well, I'll have to have to talk to Alex.
Yeah, exactly.
Please, I would like to know. I met Alex at Miola's once, and what a great player, what a great guy.
Cool. Yeah, I'm working on it. The schedule is not working out right now, but he'll be on. He just started.
Awesome.
He just started touring on the 1st, and we've been going back and forth. So.
Cool.
But we'll get him on. We'll get him on.
Good to know. That's totally cool.
Yeah, I did an amp with him. It was it was the first Skolnick model Buddha. It was I think it was a Super Drive that we had put reverb in for him and kind of tweaked it. For I think he was using it more for his jazz gigs. And it was not so much gain and compression, and it had verb. And I went up to his apartment in Brooklyn and we tweaked a couple things. And so it was it was good. Nice guy,
cool.
really nice guy.
Love it.
So, well, we could talk for another hour, but I'm sure you got to go. We got to go because I'm sure there are 87 more tracks that you have to cut for.
Actually, I am. That's exact. There you go.
Awesome. That is great, man. Well, Rich, thank you so much for taking the time, man. We and our listeners, I'm sure, learned a lot. And I know I did. Oh, yeah, me too. I appreciate you saying yes, and thank you for sharing all your experience in this industry. I know it's it's a little left of center for us as far as quote unquote amps and axes, but we do this all the time. We talk to like engineers and producers, or we'll talk to crew, and techs and things like that, and it just keeps it fresh and interesting. And it's all music, so that's why it's so cool.
And the other thing is that this modeling thing, it ain't going away.
Oh no,
and it's going to be more and more because of the money that's involved. You got to get it released quick. He'd have to have an apartment full of amplifiers, and his neighbors would hate him.
Yeah, and I know plenty of guys that do European fly dates, and just the cartage cost.
Yeah.
If you got to fill a backline full of stuff, it's just ridiculous. Or if you have to have a storage locker over there, or a cartage company over there that has strictly your gear, there's not the money in touring and shows that there used to be. And it's technology is saving bands like that. It's enabling them to go out and actually still make a living. So
that's a beautiful thing.
You can't totally diss it, man. It has its place.
No, absolutely not.
Me, I still like to move a little air, but
exactly.
Oh, I do too.
Well, you see, you still do in a lot of things that you do. Because you're playing amps now. So
yeah. I'll tell you, as much as I love plugins, when you plug into an amp, there is nothing like it.
Yeah, they haven't gotten it 100%.
No, and they haven't modeled Gibson amps. No one. I've never seen one. Not one single plugin is modeled to Gibson.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know why. I think it's the red-headed step amp often of the Fenders, but that's fine with me. I can pick them up for a song.
True. And if somebody modeled it, they know they're going to at least sell one copy to you. So there you go. Rich, thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and we will let you know when the episode goes live, and you can turn on all your friends and family and have them listen to everything we talked about today.
Amps and axes.
Amps and axes, baby. Cool. Thank you, Rich. Have a great rest of the day.
Okay.
And there you have the story.
Yeah. What an amazing dude.
Yeah. It's like, see, he got to be the expert at things early on. Mm-hmm. And then everybody goes, who knows this? Oh, you know that? Oh, cool. Yeah. And you make yourself the resident. You learn it early. You make yourself the resident expert, and then you are.
Yes.
Wow.
And here's a little tip. And we didn't get into this. We could, but if we would have ran 3 hours, I would have still been talking to him. Because, I have a big interest in this whole computer thing these days because of what we do here. Get yourself a good preamp. Don't cheap on the preamp device that you're going to plug your guitar or your microphone or whatever into. Mm-hmm. That is key. I mean, some of these things get very expensive. But there's reason for that expense is because, A, the latency that will not occur, and the quality of the audio being converted. Mm-hmm. That makes it, if you buy one of these, you got it for $50, don't expect much. Look, especially with guitar.
If you need an interface initially and, you can find something for $50 to get the job done.
Yeah.
And especially if
it's scratch.
Right. And if you're on a learning curve, and if, if you're not looking to yet make your living at this, mm-hmm. Fine. Use what you can find. Use what's available to you.
Sure.
Yeah. But I guess just know that it makes a difference.
Yes. If you start getting into some heavy stuff and you want to start really making some high end quality recordings, mm-hmm. you spend that money on that interface that's going to talk to the computer, because that is going to make all the difference when it comes down to your
preamp.
Because you got to get that signal in there as rich as possible, mm-hmm. And then the computer can do whatever it does.
True.
Because at that point it's all ones and zeros. It doesn't matter.
Right. Well, there's another guy that knows how to do all that, and that's our quick lick of the week.
Yes,
author.
Yeah,
Mr. Jason Saditas.
He just lays them down, man, and he's like, "Oh, guys, I'm sorry I was a little late," and I'm like, "I haven't even gotten the show done yet."
Exactly. So there's yet another quick lick to be available, I'm sure.
And I know he listens to the show, so I just want to see Jason have an expression on his face one day.
The man is concentrating. He's
He
constantly
is.
concentrating.
He is so smooth.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah. I'll just
Well,
wait
you know,
and see.
he might have an expression, albeit probably a negative one, if he like dropped a note once in a while or something. You know, you have the big, you know, but
anything.
It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. You know?
Yeah. But we can't thank him enough.
No, for sure. And, you know, check out the Quick Lick every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
Jason works hard at those.
if you
and we want to get him out there.
if you dare to travel that road,
Right.
good luck. So until next time, my friend.
There will be?
Yeah.
And you're still Mick Marcelino.
I
now.
am, and you're still.
I hope, Jeff Bober.
Yes, and we always say.
Oh, well, I always say.
You do it.
Onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @Amps and Axes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage, ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.
Rich, that sounds great, man. What's the guitar?
Telly. This is a guy named Rob DiStefano who builds pickups. He builds all my Tellys. Actually, I was going to talk about that in the thing since I have 6 different Telecasters, and each one of them has the different pickup configuration and or tuning. I keep alternate tuning. I keep E tuning, drop D. I have one that's completely tuned down. And I'm a big Telly fan, but I'm also a Les Paul guy.
Ah,
nice.
So this is just a Telly body.
That's beautiful. That really sounds great. I mean,
That sounds like a Gretsch.
It does. It doesn't it?
Yeah,
it really does.
That's like a Setzer guitar.
Yeah.
That's because I have the tone. You can also.
There you go.
There's the plank spank.
Yeah, there it is.
Come on.
Nice. Do you when you have them in alternate tunings, do you actually have them set up intonation wise and everything for those tunings?
Absolutely. My guy Rob, all my guitars are specifically, and they're left. Since I work so fast, they're left in that tuning permanently. So the e-guitar is really cool. I took a Telly body and Rob wired Firebird pickups to original spec, and we turned it into a Tellybird.
Oh, nice.
So I have a Telecaster that is permanently left in drop D with 2 Firebird pickups in it, and I do all my nasty swamp slide on that.
That is freaking awesome.
Oh, yeah. Then I have one Telly that I mounted humbuckers in. That's the one you hear on County Cars all the time through the boogie. And that's just Rio Grande, dirty, what are they called? Barbecue buckers. So that's shreds. And every Telly has its own world for me. I like them because they don't bother my neck and shoulders like Les Pauls do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
That is so cool, man.
All right.
So a half a dozen different ones, all just lined up and ready to rock.
Yeah, just whatever the need is. One of them's a broadcaster, which is just a single, the early one with the one single coil pickup, and that one's drop D2, and that one's just we put something in called coq-wah. Have you heard that term?
You mean like a half-cocked wah?
Yeah.
It's an inductor, right?
Yeah. So Rob wired it so that the neck position, it's one single coil, but when you go to neck position, it's cocked wah sound.
That's really funny.
The sweet switch.
The sweet switch on the early PRSs
yep.
was to emulate a half-cocked wah. So it might be like that little inductor they used to use in there.
That's what he uses.
Ah, see? There you go.
See?
That's so cool.
There you go.
Game on.
All right, man.
Cool. Excellent. Well, that was just more information for our listeners. That's fantastic.
I'll have to tag
man.
this in.
I'll tag it in.
Yeah, I'll work that in.
It's good shit.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
Yeah. You thought I was just an engineer.
And I'm glad you were able to give your guitar guy a shout out too. That's great.
Oh, he's so great. I appreciate that too because he helps me so much. He's a tinkerer. Another cool little story is that I also play cigar boxes.
Really?
That's a big thing these days.
What was that?
That's a big thing these days. A lot of people are getting into that.
I tune them weird, but I hear that on those crazy, moonshiners and all that crazy shows that I do.
Yeah.
And Rob saw my cigar box, and he's such a tinkerer. He grew up a tinkerer that he has since purchased a half a dozen cigar boxes, building his own necks, and he's building his own line of cigar boxes.
Wow.
So,
that is excellent, man. That is so cool.
I love guys like that. I love guitar guys like that that are like, oh, that's cool. I'm just going to build it myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's something else.
Love it.
That's great. That's
Awesome
great.
stuff.
All right, cool.
I guess we're good.
We're good. All right, Rich, thank you again, man. It was a real pleasure.
Stay in touch.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Next time we get up to North Jersey, we'll have to give you a call and have a beer, man.
Please, let's do that. That's just so awesome.
That would be cool.
Appreciate it.